on. Okay, so right from the jump, I have to say, in regards to what's going on with Sanji and seeing him piece together that his body is changing, I do think this is something that the anime is doing a bit better than the manga, purely from a presentation standpoint, because I remember reading the manga and how half the time thinking what was going on. I mean, I knew the context of what was happening, but the way the manga was presenting that information made the events happening within a little difficult to follow sometimes. Like just through the art, it was hard. It was really hard to make out through the artwork, is what I'm saying. And whereas the anime is just making it much more clear about what's going on at any given moment with Sanji. And I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking here, but I remember having to reread a lot of very specific portions of chapters that covered what was happening with Sanji at least twice, just so I could keep track of what was happening with him. But with all that said, I will say one thing I am appreciating about Sanji's fight with Queen overall. The more I am revisiting this in the anime, is just how thematic it is for Sanji, with the idea that even though he said he left behind his lineages of Innsmoke back on Whole Cake Island, the truth of the matter is it's a lot harder to escape than he would like. And it's not just through the realization that his family tricked him and that the combat suit he's been wearing has been slowly changing him from within and awakening all the augmentations that his father did to him, but also the idea that Queen is basically a remnant from that past, which he does have to confront, because even though Sanji wasn't around during the time Queen and Judge worked together at Mads, you could almost say that partnership in itself did still in its own way contribute to Sanji's current familial situation. And I really like how the anime is emphasizing Sanji's fear of becoming like everyone else in his family, as the one thing he always felt that he had above them was, on top of having a stronger moral center, he was human too. So he did ultimately feel he was the only human one in the family. So to see his body change in the way it was, it understandably scares him, as in that moment he realized he was becoming just like his brothers. Now, with all that said, a lot of these changes will prove to be an asset to Sanji later on in the fight, but you see how Sanji's anger and fear is kind of justified, because although we will find out later he can take solace in the fact that he still has all of his emotions, unlike his brothers. Again, it's also true that his augmentation is still there, so even though he still has emotional center of a human, on the physical standpoint, he's not entirely human either. So it's interesting how that, and it'll be more interesting to see how that economy plays out. Also, yes, the Brachiosnakeus technique was just as hilarious in the anime as the manga, although I think I still have to give a slight point in favor of the manga just for the way Oda handled the paneling with that moment. It did make it slightly funnier and much more like a Looney Tunes cartoon, in my opinion. But okay, all that aside though, we got a huge reveal in this episode, first off being that CP0 agents in Wano have been in contact with Rob Lucci's group, but even more so, through that reveal, we learned that the government ships are basically on their way to Wano to officially annex it into the world government itself, for it to become an official member of the world government, and of course that's only if Kaido is to be defeated. And this is one of those plot points that is so much more revealing in retrospect to someone like me who has read the manga, because throughout reading the entirety of Wano, I was always curious, why the hell is Wano such a target of interest for the government? What is it about this damn island that has the government on pins and needles, and even more so, what is it that Kaido is interested in finding on Wano? What, and why is it that even Yamato's Devil Fruit is so important to that mission, important to that goal? And is only to, of course, all that only leads to the tail end of the arc, where we learn why the island is so important. And yeah, the moment that reveal dropped, in the manga, everything I had read up to that point immediately started falling into place. So revisiting all these small scenes, like all the small scenes like this one with CP0, oddly adds to the excitement by me knowing what it's building up to. And honestly, I'm gonna be really invested in seeing a lot of Anime Only's reaction when that moment drops. But for me personally, it is interesting how when revisiting this in the anime, everything just feels like it just feels much more into place, and just all the little details that are culminating to this reveal feel much more obvious now than they were before. Like I wasn't even thinking about a lot of this, about what all these little things would lead to, but looking back on where it ultimately did lead, it does make a lot of sense. Now, as far as the just in general the government's plan to annex Wano itself, yeah, it's pretty fucking stupid, dumbasses. Like, if you government jackasses really think this is gonna be the way go the way they think it will, then I have a giant elephant to sell you, idiots. Wink, wink. But yeah, of course, we also see Yamato and Momonosuke separate in this episode, with Momonosuke being left alone to master his abilities, trying to create large enough flame clouds to replace Kaido's, while Yamato tries to take advantage of the fact that Onigashima is a floating bomb to try and reduce the impact if it should come down to the fact that, yeah, it has to drop on Wano, but and just trying to reduce the impact in any small way possible. And there weren't a lot of scenes like this, but I do admit they did feel like the slowest parts of the episode, as they were just more setup than anything else. And like always, it is kind of one of those things where it does beg the question how long Toei's gonna maybe drag out the flame clowns bit. But so far they have been pretty good, so I want to give them the benefit of the doubt in this situation that it isn't going to be as bad as that. Even if they drag it out, it's probably still isn't going to be as bad as I think it is. But we'll have to wait and see on that one to know for sure. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime signing off. Later, everyone.